instructor-led. So we've integrated into a model which you're very familiar with. We have a proprietary LMS and LCMS, but I have done this on some of the bigger LMSs, and it's possible to integrate with the bigger LMSs, the commercial ones. We use the Realizeit learning analytic authoring and delivery system. I have an instructional design team. I have an editing and media team, very small, and then I have full use of academic faculty, subject matter experts. So I work with literally in between 50 and 100 of the faculty on a monthly basis at least. I wanted to give you a definition to start with. I know adaptive learning is all across the country in literature, and it means different things to different people, but I'd like to take it to what I feel is the real strength of using this method. The other thing I should say is I have had about 100 years of experience in the classroom, so I've taught all the grade levels, including from pre-K to graduate school, and I did it for many years, so I'm very familiar with education. But what I feel this is all about is that it's personalized learning using a learning analytic engine that serves up the right content, right assessments to the right student at the exact right time. This allows students concentrate on what they don't know, collapsing what they do know, and putting in front of them what they don't know. And the assessment and feedback are continual. It's continual and together. This results students and informed faculty. So the sixth step is map structure.
Hey, Judy, we're getting some audio problems. Stand by real quick. I should be able to fix it. I think that should have fixed it. Continue when you're ready.
Okay. Steps in building map. First one is the lesson or node structure and map structure. One. First one, assessment statement. Fourth one, I want to talk about map page, and map, and finalization. Yeah, is the audio still fine?
We're having a couple of issues. I'm working on fixing it at the moment.
Okay. Should I
and if everyone else who's on the line could please mute your lines, that might help us.
It's better now.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, okay. So step number one, how do you start your map? How do you even talk about a map structure? Well, you're all very familiar with course objectives. You're very familiar with a course outline. And you have course objectives and probably course outlines in your existing courses and in your existing content. This is where you begin, okay? You begin with the course objectives and the course outline. Course objectives and course outline actually become the lesson or node structure. Lesson and node are the same word, which actually then drives the map structure. What do I mean by that? You take the course objectives and you align the objectives to your units, weeks, or modules, just like you would in a non-adaptive course if you were building it. Then you also need a detailed course outline, which you may already have. The major topics for each unit need to be specified, and the subtopics need to be specified. So if you have course objectives, a detailed course outline, and the alignment of those objectives and those topics in that outline aligned with your units or weeks or modules, whatever you call them, you actually have everything you need to start to build a learning map. You want to use the existing content as much as possible. You want to use the existing structure as much as possible. And the key points from step one, the alignment of the objectives in those units and the detailed course outline, because the detailed course outline actually becomes your plan or your map. Those are the key points for step one. Okay, so this is a detailed node structure. And if you look very closely at this, these are topics that are in each unit. We're going to take an analytical college algebra class. In Unit 1, these are the detailed topics to be covered. In Unit 2, this is what needs to be covered. In Unit 3, Unit 4, and Unit 5. Coming from the detailed course outline and the mapped objectives that we have for each unit. And what that becomes is the structure or the basis or the beginning of the map. So what we have done is taken notes and put it in so that it's map form, if you will. The other thing is you need to make sure that your course outline at the topic level and at the subtopic level has everything in it that students need to know for that unit. So we are looking at granularity here, and I want to talk about that a little bit. So what do you do if your existing course is not at the granular level? So granular content is needed, and actually this is not my idea, but I learned this from someone. In order to break down your course materials and in order to break down what you have for existing right now, you should treat it like it is a full book full of chapters, and you have to make the table of contents from that book. The table of contents doesn't exist. So you take your course and you look at it, and how would you break that course into a table of content? So let's say we have 5 units in our course. Those are our 5 chapters. From your course outline and your materials in your course, what is in Chapter 1, what is in Chapter 2, so on. So if you think of the existing and you break it down, you feel more in control, like, oh, I need more content, oh, I don't have what I need. That's been something that I've worked with several universities across the country. Take what you have, break it on down, and you usually have more than you think you do, okay? So once you break this down, you're looking at your content and you're saying, you know what, I think I need a little bit more in Unit 2, or I think I need more in Unit 5, whatever it happens to be. How do you add to a learning map with additional content? And how do you get that content easy? And how do you get that content into that map easy? I want to answer those questions for you. Okay, so some of the things, first of all, we use the existing course material, but some of the content items that we add to it, okay, we add videos. You're very familiar with the TEDx or the Khan Academy. There's some real good Khan Academy channels that you should check out. But also for our live chat sessions in our classes, use a Connect in the classroom. So what I've done is had faculty make 5-minute just private Adobe Connect modeling and explaining the difficult parts of the class. So we do what would be more like an on-demand video, if you will. So you take Unit 1 and I say to the faculty, what are the 3 to 5 hardest concepts in here? And then they identify them easily and they make 5-minute little explanations. They'll put a drawing up and explain, they'll put a process up and explain, but it's only like a 5-minute explanation of that difficult concept. Students can then hit these videos or hit these Adobe Connect links when they need them. So they're on demand. So if it's 11 o'clock at night and a student is stuck, they can hit this and find out, give me more information on this very difficult topic. So we do the Adobe Connects, we do TEDx, we do Khan Academy, and I'm sure you have a whole list. I didn't list all our video sources here, but I'm sure you have a whole list of video sources. We use websites, related websites, and actually bring students out to websites. We do demonstrations, modeling, and explanations. So we have something that we say, what is this, how is it used, and why? Okay, so we follow that model. So we do all kinds of modeling, explanations, and demonstrations within the learning maps. We do simulations within the learning maps. We do interactive media within the learning maps. Library sources. One thing that we've had great success with, and I think you all have at your fingertips probably, is the librarian. What we do is we give the librarian that detailed course outline, and our librarians then prepare a bibliography for each course. They prepare a bibliography based on what our library has, so the EBSCO resources, the ProQuest resources. So with that bibliography, we then know that we can get at that materials and the students can get at those materials, so that helps, again, feed more content into the map with the use of the library and the librarians. Publisher learning objects that come with your textbook that you may already be employing in the class can certainly go into the map. And then OER resources. As we continue to watch OER grow, it's very full of resources, right? The OER resources, and actually been dealing with them for more than 5 years, and I know some of you are there with me. 5 years ago, they were not all authoritative, and they weren't organized. Now they're very organized, they're very current, they're very authoritative, they're very relevant, so they've grown in quality over the last 5 years. So these are other content sources. And then I have the word ingestion, which sounds a little funny, but the way that we get material into our adaptive learning system quickly and easily is to ingest. So if you're looking at an adaptive learning system and you don't have this they don't have the ingestion feature, I want you to look very closely at it, because if you don't have this ingestion that can read files and bring them into the map for you, you have to, copy and paste. You have a lot of extra manual work to do. So you want to have content that you can ingest into your map once you have vetted it and curated it and you're ready, like, yes, I want this in there. You want to be able to ingest that content in, whether it's a PDF, whether it's a Word document, whatever it is. You want that ingestion tool as part of your adaptive learning toolbox, if you will. Okay. All right, there is step 2. Step 3, assessment creation, okay? Some people feel sometimes a bit overwhelmed with this. This is one of my favorite parts, okay? So in the adaptive learning model, you can use a wide variety of question types, a wide variety of assessments, okay? In the beginning, when we were talking about adaptive learning, many people thought it was only multiple choice, it was a remedial, developmental usage only. I have to tell you that we aren't authorized to do developmental, and I haven't built a remedial or developmental map for our schools. I built one for Pell Institute, but I didn't build one for our schools. So when I said that we did maps through doctoral, that requires rich assessments. Our master's level has a lot of adaptive learning in it, and it requires a rich assessment tool to do that. So we have critical thinking and Bloom's level question stems that we've matched. We've taken the Bloom's level and we've matched question stems to those Bloom's levels that we give right to the faculty and their subject matter experts and say, here, if you start a question with this, you know, we have a stronger base, if you will. There are different question types. I'm going to show you these. There's composite question types, which puts a couple of question types together, scenario questions, images questions, video questions. They watch a little video snippet and then they answer the questions, okay? The use of variables. I can't tell you on the right-hand side of the screen, the use of variables and the ingestion templates is how you operationalize the left-hand side of the screen, okay? The use of variables, we use variables all the time, numeric and string variables, and I'm going to give you examples, okay? So variables are a key to question generation. I can write 5 questions and I can put in variables and actually get more than 20 instances of that question. Now, you wouldn't want to do that, but if you're looking for 15 questions, rather than having a faculty member or a SME write 15 separate questions, if they could write 5 questions with variables, it takes them less time, and the engine can generate those to make more than 15 questions, and you still have your academic integrity. The other thing is ingestion templates. I said ingestion with content. It's critically important for you to be able to ingest questions. So what we do is we have Word templates, which I'm happy to share with you. We have Word templates that the faculty fill out. They send it back to us. We run it through authentication, we run it through the editing, and when it's done, we simply ingest it into the Learning Analytic Engine or the Adaptive Learning Tool, and it literally takes under 15 seconds to put those questions in using an ingestion template. So really critical, the use of variables and the use of ingestion in the assessment implementation, if you will. It takes a very, very long time to manually put in question by question by question and the different choices and the different styles. So you can actually increase your time and increase the workload quite a bit on this slide by not using variables, by not using the different types, and by not using the templates for ingestion. Okay, so I've heard a lot of people say it's a lot of work. Not going to deny that it's a lot of work, but you want to spend the work on the design and the pathing and the dynamic questioning. You do not want to spend your time in building a map on entering questions, for example. So key points, the assessment variety, the use of variables, the dynamic questioning, and the ingestion templates here. Okay, so let's look at some examples. So here's some multiple choice questioning, okay? So on the left-hand side is a very simple multiple choice. So this has, you can have more than one. You break out of the 4 and 1, right? You break out of the traditional, I'm going to offer you 4 things and only 1 is going to be right. You can have more than 1 correct answer. But how we generate multiple choice questions is when a faculty member writes a multiple choice question, they write 4 correct and 4 incorrect answers. And what the engine does is it offers up 4 things, and we decided to have 2, right? You decide that. But these choices keep changing. So even if the student gets this question a second time, which is rare, if they get it a second time, it's not the same question because the choices underneath are not the same. And the engine serves up different instances of this question as its job. That's what it's supposed to do, right? The other thing is over on the right-hand side, the multiple choice lend themselves to application questions or scenario questions very well. So you can do an application question or a scenario question very easily in multiple choice because you write this little scenario, this little problem, this little process, whatever you want in here, and then you ask a multiple choice question about that. So they have to read this, they have to understand, they have to analyze it, and then they have to read their choices. So multiple choice questioning for correct and for incorrect is how we write multiple choice questions. Okay, so there's visual questions, and it's known as point and click in our system. But basically, you can use images. This, of course, is from an art appreciation class, as you can imagine, and this is hot-spotted. So the student must click on the right place or the correct place on this particular picture where the vanishing point is. They've already had the discussion on the vanishing point. They've been shown several art pieces in the vanishing point. Now they're being asked that question. There's one example. Here's an example. This is from an IT class, and it's about computer components, and you're supposed to identify. Here's a couple of questions. Again, this is hot-spotted, so you can, for online learning, you can bring the pictures right to the students, and then they have to click on the correct hotspot to identify the correct computer component. And then for a more business application, if you will, what they have to do for this, they have to, first of all, understand the analysis technique used here, and then this is the feedback down here, but they have to click in the correct place on the chart, okay? So this could be used for finance classes, stats classes, so forth, okay? So visual questioning, so you use an image, you use a chart, you use, you know, some type of visual display to actually ask the question. Okay, here's a composite question example. This is one question. So again, we have the question scenario, and you can reuse the question scenario, and you can reuse your images for several questions, right? So, but what happens here is this is the combination of multiple choice and enter answer, okay? So they read the particular scenario, and then the multiple choice question is here, and these are choices, okay? So this is how the subject matter expert writes the correct ones and writes the incorrect ones. And these would be served up differently in different combinations by the engine, okay? And then down here with the enter answer, there are two key expenses, all right? So it's an enter answer thing. So we have some alternatives with enter answer, and this is where the student would then type in. But actually they have to answer all of this to get credit for this question. So this is known as a composite type question when you put more than one question type together. Okay, let's take a look at the use of variables. So I have three examples here of variables. This is from multiplying binomials as right from math, okay, and I kind of have in red over here the part that we're talking about integer 1 and integer 2 over here. And if you look here, integer 1 has a range of 1 to 6, okay? So this number is going to be switched out automatically by the engine. And as you can see, if I write this and I do these variables, I have numerous questions, and they don't look the same, right? They don't look the same because the numbers keep switching out. Okay, in a business-related variable use, this happens to be finding taxable income. So there's three different variables in this particular question, and there are 7 different names. In other words, this variable has 7 different choices. The salary range here is from $30,000 to $80,000 with $5,000 intervals. So this will switch out constantly with $5,000 in intervals. And then the percent range of the income tax withheld is in between 25 and 40% with 5% intervals. So as I build this question, this is what we ask from the faculty member. Write this question and give these variables, and then the engine can serve up many examples of finding taxable income. If the student gets how to do finding taxable income in 2 or 3 questions, fine, but if they're not getting it, the engine is ready to give them 5 or 6 to work on and to figure out with, and that it's all generated from the subject matter expert simply using these, this question on the left and these different variables on the right. The bottom one here is a heavy-duty string variable, and this is actually more from a business math class. But what I wanted to tell you about string variables is I'm not sure people always remember to use them, but if we use string variables in an English class, for instance, we have a thesis statement unit and a module, and what we do is we change the string variables and we change the words around. So you can have a well-constructed thesis statement and you can have an ill-constructed thesis statement, and after students have worked through enough of those, they understand thesis statements. The way you make it a well-constructed or an ill-constructed is changing the variables, and you set them up just like we have here. So numeric and string variables. Okay, instructional design. I put this as step 4, but actually it goes on continuously throughout the process, as you could imagine. They align the objectives with the map structure. They make sure the workload and the cognitive load is correct. They design sections of learning and content chunking. The way that you can think of this granular content or the content chunking also is if you are designing mobile content, right? In the mobile content world, we have more of the chunking, we have more of the micro-learning. So not only can you do this for the adaptive maps, but it may also support your mobile initiative. That's what's happened with me, which I'm great with that. Instructional designers will design some interactivity. They program the content and the assessment. They embed the videos, they insert the images, they upload the PDFs, and I haven't named everything here, but as you can see, they program questions, they align. So the instructional design of designing a map is an important piece. You may have a team that does that, or you may have a faculty that do that, okay? Step 5, prerequisite map and path creation. Very, very, very important piece. You got all the lessons done. You have all the assessments done. This is a key piece. It's the connection between the lessons and it's the connection between the units. The connectors in a map are as important as the content in the lesson, okay? And somebody taught me that very early on, and they are 100% right, I have to say, okay? So we do what's known as a prerequisite map, and I think it's best if I show you what I'm talking about. So I'm simply going to go to the next screen, okay? This is from that college algebra course that we started out with, all of those topics, you know, Unit 1, Unit 2, all of those topics. This is Unit 2 from that same class, which you saw just, 25 minutes ago in a very text form. And what this is this is how students should pass their way through Unit 2. This is based on what should they learn before the other thing, the prerequisite map. And the connectors are important because they actually establish the map. There's 2 entry points on the left-hand side, and the more terminal nodes are on the right-hand side. So how do you get from the entry points through the terminal or the more terminal on the right-hand side? So it's about knowing the content. It's about your academics knowing how students should learn and what order they should learn in. But this is how you take that very textual piece I had and actually make Unit 2. Each one of these represents a lesson with assessment, but the pathing or the arrows is what I want to call your attention to here. And then I'll show you complete maps also. Okay, Step 6, review and finalization, okay? What is the student experience? Can they move through the map easily? Have you tested all the videos? Have you tested all the links? Are the questions? If I write choose to, can I pick to? The other thing is that academic review, approval, training, okay? Academics should be very familiar with these maps when you're done. If you work with 3 algebra teachers and there's 15 algebra teachers, you have to bring the other 12 on board with what's in this map and how does it work and how does it flow. So the key points of Step 6 are the student experience and academic approval. So let's look at that map finished, okay? So here is that algebra map, which we started by just having the course outline and the course outline and the learning objectives. Each color here represents a different unit. But I want you to see how there are connections between units, because you build maps for courses, you build maps for programs, and then what we do is layer on the units because we have this academic system that we work within, right? But you have to keep in mind, what is the entire map experience for the student? What do I want them to know when they're finished? So each color here represents a different unit, but you do see the connections between the units. Now I'm going to skip forward. This is one map design. There's several map designs, and it is dependent on the content and the pathing. It depends. An algebra map does not look like a psychology map, and a psychology map does not look like a health map. So you're looking here at the different units connected for the algebra class. I'm just going to jump forward really quickly, Leah, and then I'll come back. Here is a health care organization map, and you see that there is a huge difference. Again, the colors represent the different units, but do you see the connectors here, and do you see the pathing that goes on? This is a higher level class, and this is a very integrated class, especially in units 3, 4, and 5, and there isn't one way to do a map. It depends on what your content is. It depends on what your pathing and your prerequisites are. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to go back to, whoops, didn't mean to do that. Hang on. I just want to go back to the questions quick. And we can open it up for questions, Leah.
Okay, great. Thanks, Judy. If anyone had submitted a question through the chat rather than the Q&A, if you could submit that again. I lost connection for a moment, but we'll get to those. I do recall seeing one, Judy, someone had asked if you could show an example of blooms.
Of the blooms, the PowerPoint, the blooms with the critical thinking that I spoke of? That was the question?
I think it was related to critical thinking, and whoever asked that question, again, if you could put that into the Q&A, that would be great.
See if I can find that. I have some things waiting. Let me see if I can find that very quickly.
Okay.
Let's go on to another question while I'm looking, okay?
Okay, and the other question was, do the assessment questions then show up in your CMS, I believe? And I'm just going from memory as I lost that question.
Okay, so do the assessment questions show up in my content management, is that what you're saying? In my content management system, do the questions show up there? I think that's what you're saying. So that's absolutely right. So the questions, when we ingest them into the system, basically they go into the authoring part of the system or the content management system. That is correct. They get ingested in there, and then the map, when we're finished with the map gets published out to the students in the LMS or the classroom. That's correct.
Great. We have a question about composite questions. Is that a text match of phrases?
For the enter answer, is it a text match of phrases? if I'm, you know, someone else can clarify the question, but I think that's what's being asked. Yes, the student must actually type in that particular phrase or words or order, step or process or whatever it has to be. But they have to type in, they have to enter in the answer. So it is a matching of their answer to the answer that we've programmed in. We always have quite a few alternatives to that. So if the student is close or uses synonyms for a word that would certainly be appropriate, then it's still okay.
Thanks, Judy, and that actually answered the next question. Must it be an exact match or can it be close? So it was yes, it can be close.
Yeah, so there's choices in the system, right? Exact match, we put on accounting amounts or math, right? It's got to be an exact match for accounting, right? But if it's a phrase, a textual phrase, then we have a choice of phrase, and it doesn't have to be an exact match, okay? And then we put in the alternatives also.
Great. The next question is about the map, and that is, can students only jump around if it's explicitly mapped? Otherwise, are they not accessible?
Can you say that one more time, Leah?
Sure. On the map, can students only jump around if it's explicitly mapped? Otherwise, is it not accessible?
Okay, so let me see if I can. I was just going to try to get back to the map. I think I understand. So again, if somebody wants to clarify, they could. Just one second. Let me see if I can get back to the map, and it might. What I'm thinking is it might help if I pull this up. So, okay. So I think what the question is, and seeking clarification if needed. I think what the question is when a student comes in here, okay, so let's say I'm going to enter this unit and I start here, okay, can I jump around or could I start here? No, you can't start here because this node is locked or this lesson is locked until you have shown evidence knowledge in these two that this should open up for you. Okay, so there has to be the evidence and knowledge here. Okay, so let's say I'm working on this unit up here. I'm going to start in these two. I evidence knowledge. As soon as I evidence knowledge on this one, these two will come open for me. Okay, this is very linear, right? This is unique, but math sometimes gets super linear, right? Same thing here. If I evidence knowledge on here, then these two open up for me. I have to work on this one to open up this one, which will then open up these two, so on. So there is pathing that goes on. But you can see the relationship if we just look here. You can see the relationship. But students must evidence knowledge before they go on to the next lesson because otherwise it would be really, really frustrating for students. Plus, they have a high chance of not succeeding. So the nodes over here remain locked, if you will. Like these nodes are locked until I can pass my way, at least here, right? These are locked, so I could not come over and jump in. Now, I'm not sure if I've covered the question, but I hope that's what they were asking.
Sounds good. The next question is, where do algorithms and machine learning factor in?
Well, first of all, that's no question for me, but I'll tell you what happens. So that's what the engine is doing, okay? So the engine, which I didn't build, right, okay, the engine has many, many algorithms, right, and it is checking. What I can tell you is when a student is in here working, by looking at several hundred students' learning logs over the last 2 years, I can tell you that the engine is checking this on the student every 3 to 5 minutes. So it takes a measure on the students every 3 to 5 minutes on where they are with their knowledge state. So Exactly how the algorithms work, I can't speak to that because that is the engine. I do know that Realizeit has white papers out on their site that may talk to that for whomever asks the question, but the whole machine learning and the evidencing of knowledge, the predictive analytics, the analytics that we get are absolutely phenomenal, and the best part about them is that they're turned into information, real usable information in real time. So I would recommend that somebody goes to the Realizeit site for a more detailed answer than I'm able to give them.
Okay, those are all the questions that we have submitted. We will wrap up. I'd like to thank everyone for joining, and thank you to Judy for our presentation today. Our apologies again for any technical issues. We had a couple of glitches, but we will share the recording. Hopefully we were able to get most of that, and we'll share that with everyone. If you do have any further questions, feel free to visit realizeitlearning.com or send us an email, give us a call. We're happy to discuss more of this with you, as I know Judy would be as well. So again, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Judy, and have a great day.